Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are jumping into a really fascinating case study, one that's full of contradictions, the electric vehicle transition in Italy.
It's a great topic because it's such a puzzle.
It really is. We've pulled together sources that paint this deeply conflicting picture. On one side, you have this massive investment in charging infrastructure. It's booming.
Yeah, the growth is huge. A 68% compound annual growth rate between 2021 and 2024. That's serious money being spent.
Steel in the ground, right. But then you look at the other side, and EV sales are just flat. They're stagnating and falling way behind the rest of Europe.
And that disconnect is exactly what we need to get into.
That's the gap. Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. Our mission here is to really analyze the why. Why does this gap exist? And how is this massive 2025 government policy shift completely redefining the market? For you, the listener, figuring this out gives you some powerful clues about what it actually takes to build a mature EV ecosystem.
Not just selling a few cars.
Exactly. It's about the whole system.
So let's set the stage with the market reality. If you look at Italy's EV market penetration right now, so the percentage of new cars sold that are fully electric, it's basically stuck at about 8%.
And that 8%, you have to put it in context. The European average is around 25%.
25. So Italy is less than a third of the average.
It's a severe lag.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at a leader like Norway, where new electric car registrations are hitting, almost 97%?
97%.
It just shows Italy is dealing with a totally different set of problems than its neighbors.
And it's worse than just lagging. The momentum is actually going backward. In 2024, sales actually dropped by about 8%.
8% decrease. And that was all about policy uncertainty.
Exactly. Consumers just hit the brakes. They were waiting to see if the government would renew the subsidies they'd gotten used to. It just paralyzed the market.
And that shows how dependent it was on that stimulus. On its current path, Italy is going to massively miss its goals. The target is 6 million EVs on the road by 2030.
And the projections?
The projections show they'll maybe hit half of that. They're just way off the pace.
And you mentioned it's not even a national problem, really. It's concentrated.
It is so concentrated. The EV transition right now is, for all intents and purposes, a northern Italian phenomena.
60% of all battery electric vehicle sales are in the north.
60%.
Yeah.
And you see it in the city data. The early adopters are all up north. Trento's #1. Then you have Florence with over 5% of its fleet being electric. Bolzano over 3%.
And in the south.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
Cities like Naples, Toronto, the adoption rates there are among the lowest in the country. It's a real challenge when your policy is national, but adoption is so regional.
Which brings us right to the heart of the paradox, the infrastructure. Because despite those weak sales, the investment is real. Italy now has 64,391 public charge points.
That's a 27% jump in just 1 year. And the key thing is 84% of them are reported as active. They actually work.
And they're getting faster, too.
They are. The quality is improving. DC fast chargers now make up 22% of all the public points. That's up from just 14% before. So the charge point operators, the CPOs, they're investing in the right hardware.
But they're still behind. That vehicle-to-charger ratio, it's improved a bit to 17-1.
Right, but the European average is 14-1. So they're building fast, but they started from way behind. They're still closing that gap.
And as you said, the distribution is the real killer. Here's where it gets really interesting. That north-south divide isn't just about who's buying the cars. It's about who even has the option to. About 55% of all public chargers are concentrated just in the north.
And if you zoom out, the national picture is even worse. Over 40% of all Italian municipalities have 0 public charging stations.
0. None. That is a massive hole in the map.
It is. And we can actually put a number on what that means for people's confidence. There's a case study from Trentino.
Which is a pretty well-off, tourist-heavy area.
Exactly. And even there, the gaps are stark. In that one province, 43.4% of its municipalities, that's 72 out of 166, don't have a single charging point.
Wow.
So think about what that feels like for an EV owner. It's not just range anxiety. It's like range terror. The average distance to find the nearest charger on the road there is 4,763 meters.
So almost 5 kilometers.
Nearly 4.8 kilometers. In a city, that's one thing. But in a rural, mountainous area, that feels like an emergency. You just can't build mass market confidence with gaps like that.
And where you do find chargers, the density is often for the wrong reasons. If you're a resident, Take a small village like Campitello di Fassa.
Okay.
7 chargers for only 700 residents. That seems great, but that network isn't for the locals. It's for the tourists driving through.
Right. So the CPOs are chasing the quick revenue from visitors, not building the reliable network that residents need to live their actual lives.
And that's the paradox. They're building for tourism, not for commuting.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And this slow, uneven growth puts huge financial pressure on those operators who invest, expecting a much quicker return. So they have to be strategic. They pick tourist spots to survive.
But that doesn't help the national network. And surveys show that half of Italians still think the public network is inefficient and too slow anyway.
So the perception matches the reality of the gaps.
And this whole mess, stagnating sales, policy confusion, financial pressure, it forced the government's hand. In 2025, they're making a massive policy pivot. The old national eco-bonus for private buyers is gone.
Not being renewed. It's a huge change.
A total withdrawal of that broad market stimulus.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture, the strategy behind it is really about sovereignty. The government realized its public funds were basically subsidizing foreign-made cars,
Especially from China.
particularly from China. So the new focus is self-reliance, to shift away from stimulating demand and toward building up their own domestic industry.
And they are backing this with a huge long-term bet. They've earmarked something like 4.6 billion euros.
A massive amount of money.
So build up domestic production of EVs, batteries, components, the whole supply chain in Italy and the EU.
It's a complete industrial strategy.
But here's the risk I see. You pull the plug on the main consumer incentive. How big is the demand vacuum you create in the short term? That 4.6 billion is a great long-term plan, but what happens for the next 5 years until that production is actually online?
It's a very high-stakes gamble.
Yeah.
And everything hinges on the demand support that's left, which is now incredibly targeted.
So it's not completely gone.
Not completely, just surgically precise. There's a new 600 million euro fund from the National Recovery Plan starting in September 2025.
And who gets that?
It's for people with a low IZ, that's the measure of household wealth in Italy, and for microenterprises. And crucially, you only get the grant if you scrap an old polluting car.
Ah, so it's a cash for clunkers style program.
Pretty much. The grants can go up to 11,000 euros for low-income families. So it's not just a sales boost anymore. It's an environmental and a social equity policy all rolled into one.
That's smart. But it's not the broad stimulus the market was used to. I know there are other levers, too, like pushing corporations to switch.
Yes, the corporate pressure is vital. Some regions, like Bolzano, still have their own subsidies. But the big one is a fringe benefit reform that makes it much more expensive, tax-wise, to have a company car with an internal combustion engine.
So it's a clear signal to corporate fleets, go electric or pay more.
And you need that, because market maturity is about so much more than just sales and chargers. You need a whole ecosystem. That includes after-sales support.
The repair centers?
Repair centers. Countries like Norway, Germany, the UK. They're known for having the best ones. Specialized staff, battery repair skills.
Yeah.
That's what builds real long-term confidence for consumers.
That's so critical for the used EV market, too. If people don't believe they can get a battery fixed affordably in 5 years, the resale value of the car just collapses.
It crashes. And if residual values are terrible, nobody wants to buy a new one because the depreciation is too high. It stifles the whole market.
And in Italy, that service network is, well, it's just like the chargers and the sales.
It mirrors the adoption pattern completely. The good, specialized repair centers for high-voltage systems exist, but they're in Trento, Florence, Milan, Rome. It's not a nationwide safety net yet.
So if we step back, this comparison with a place like Norway really shows you the 3 pillars you need for success, right? You need consistent long-term policy.
A dense and evenly spread infrastructure.
And a robust after-sales support system. Italy has kind of failed on the first 2, and now this new policy is this giant strategic bet. They're sacrificing short-term sales momentum.
To build long-term industrial capability. It's a bet on economic sovereignty.
So what does this all mean? What we've really unpacked is this incredibly complex turning point. Italy is betting that its huge commitment to manufacturing, plus those very targeted subsidies and the push on corporate fleets, can eventually overcome the mess caused by the policy chaos and the infrastructure gaps.
They're using industrial policy to hopefully create consumer demand down the line.
It's a fascinating strategy.
It is, and it leaves an important question for you to think about. With that broad consumer bonus gone, will the corporate fleet transition and the public transport targets, they want 20% of new buses to be electric by the end of 2025. Will that be enough?
Enough to bridge the demand gap.
Exactly. Will it be enough to keep things moving until their own domestic production finally comes online? That short-term vacuum is the biggest risk they face.
That is the essential question, and it's going to define the next few years of Italy's e-mobility story. We really focused on laying out the sources simply and clearly today, and we hope it made for an interesting deep dive.
We hope so.
We are truly grateful for the time you dedicated to this deep dive. Your engagement is highly appreciated, and we are really thankful for it. If you enjoyed this analysis, please follow the channel, and let us know if there's a specific topic you'd like us to explore next. Thank you for diving deep with us.